Hey everyone, welcome to the channel. Today, I'm going to tell you a story that will stay with you long after it's over. It's a story about life, regret, second chances, and how sometimes, what's lost can still be found. This is not just a story, this is a journey through emotion, mystery, and the choices that define us. So sit back, grab a coffee or tea, and get ready. By the end, you might find yourself seeing life just a little differently. Part 1, Introducto in the past is never gone. No one had lived in the house on the edge of the lake for over 20 years. Locals whispered stories about it, some said it was cursed, others said it was haunted by the memories of a family that vanished overnight. But for Daniel Carter, it was just home. Or it had been, a lifetime ago. Daniel was now 35. A successful architect in the city, with awards on his shelf and a life that looked perfect on paper. But inside, he was hollow. Haunted not by ghosts, but by a choice he made when he was just 15 years old. He hadn't been back to the lake house since that night, since the argument, since his younger sister Emily disappeared. It was supposed to be a normal summer. His family spent every August at the lake house. That year was no different, except for the tension that buzzed beneath the surface. His parents were fighting more than usual. His father drank too much. His mother cried behind closed doors. And Daniel wanted to be anywhere else. Emily was only 8, quiet and curious, always drawing in her sketchbook. She was the one person Daniel felt responsible for. But that night, after another fight with their father, Daniel stormed out into the woods, leaving Emily behind. She was never seen again. No one ever found out what happened, and Daniel had never forgiven himself. 20 years later, a letter arrived at his apartment. No return address. No explanation, just 3 words: come home now. Inside the envelope was a drawing, childlike, faded with time. A picture of the lake, and 2 figures standing at the shore point. One of them was him, the other was Emily. Daniel stared at the sketch, his hands trembling. He recognized Emily's handwriting beneath the drawing, "I'm waiting." He packed his bags that night and drove back to the lake. Part 2, the story unfolds. Some doors should stay closed. But some shouldn't. The road to the lake house hadn't changed much. The same tall pines lined the narrow dirt path, their shadows long in the late afternoon sun. As Daniel drove, he felt his chest tighten. Memories pushed at the edges of his mind, the laughter of his sister echoing through the trees, the fights, the silence that followed. He parked at the edge of the old driveway. The house stood there, just as he remembered. A little more worn. Shutters hanging loose. The paint faded and cracked. But it was still standing, and something told him it had been waiting for him. Inside, the house smelled of dust and old wood. The furniture was still there, covered in white sheets. Daniel pulled one off the couch and sat down, his heart pounding. He pulled the drawing from his pocket. "I'm waiting." The sound of something falling echoed from upstairs. Daniel froze. He wasn't alone. He climbed the stairs slowly. The 3rd step creaked, just like it always had. At the end of the hall was Emily's room. The door was slightly open. He pushed it wider. Inside, the room looked untouched. Her bed was still made. Her sketchbooks were stacked neatly on the desk. Daniel walked over and picked one up. He flipped through the pages, seeing drawings of animals, flowers, and then, the lake. Page after page, the lake under a dark sky, the lake with strange shapes beneath the surface. On the last page was a picture of the house and someone standing at the window. Suddenly, Daniel felt a cold breath on the back of his neck. He spun around. No one was there, but the window was open, and outside, by the edge of the water, he saw a small figure. He rushed downstairs and out into the night. By the water stood a girl, her back to him, staring at the lake. She wore a white dress, her dark hair tangled by the wind. "Emily?" Daniel whispered. The figure turned slowly and smiled, but it wasn't Emily. It was a woman, pale, with eyes like glass. "You came," she said softly. Daniel stepped back. "Who are you?" She tilted her head. "You know who I am." Her voice was familiar, too familiar. The woman pointed to the lake. "She's still here." "You left her." Daniel's legs felt weak. What do you mean? The woman smiled sadly. You'll remember soon. And then she was gone, vanished into the mist. Part 3, The Endingy Truth. Beneath the surface. Daniel couldn't sleep that night. He sat by the fireplace, the old sketchbook on his knees. Page after page of Emily's drawings stared back at him like silent witnesses, and then he found something strange. Between the pages was a letter, folded tightly. It was addressed to him. In Emily's handwriting. Danny, I'm scared. Daddy is angry. He says I have to stay quiet about what I saw at the lake. I don't want to stay in the basement. I hear things down there. If you find this, please come get me. Daniel's breath caught in his throat. The basement. He had forgotten all about the basement. He grabbed a flashlight and headed for the door under the stairs. The lock was rusted but still held. He kicked it until it broke. The air smelled of damp earth. He descended the steps, each one creaking under his weight. At the bottom was darkness, and then a small wooden door. He pulled it open. Inside was a room. Small, cold, and in the corner, a child's chair. A sketchbook. A white dress and bones. Daniel fell to his knees, his scream echoing in the tiny space. He had left her, all those years ago. He had walked away, and his father had locked Emily down here. As he wept, he felt a hand on his shoulder. He turned. It was Emily. Or something that looked like her. She smiled. It's okay now. You came back. Daniel's tears blurred his vision. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. She nodded. Come with me. They walked back upstairs, out into the dawn. The lake was still. Emily pointed. You can let go now. Daniel dropped to his knees at the shore. He placed the sketchbook in the water and watched as it floated away. When he turned back, Emily was gone, but for the first time in 20 years, he wasn't alone. Daniel rebuilt the house, turned it into a refuge for lost children, and every summer, he walked to the edge of the lake and waited. And sometimes, when the wind was just right, he heard a little girl's laughter and knew she had finally found peace. Thank you for staying with me until the end. Stories like this remind us how important it is to face the past and make peace with what haunts us. If you found this story moving, let me know your thoughts in the comments. And if you've ever had a moment where you wished you could go back and change something, you're not alone. Don't forget to like and subscribe for more stories that make you feel, think, and wonder. See you in the next one.